Most people who hear this title assume it means Sofía almost became queen instead of her older sister. That's not actually what happened, and the real story is stranger than that. Spain didn't almost pick the younger sister over the older one. Spain almost passed a law that would have let an entirely different child, one that was never born, skip past both of them. Here's how close that came to happening, and why the two sisters you see standing together at every royal event are technically living inside a legal loophole that was never fully closed. Leonor was born in October 2005, the first child of Felipe and Letizia, then Prince and Princess of Asturias. Under Spain's constitution, written in 1978, the throne passes by something called male preference cognatic primogeniture, meaning the eldest child inherits, but only as long as that child isn't outranked by a younger brother. The moment Leonor was born a girl, every politician in the country knew exactly what that meant. If her parents ever had a son, that son would leapfrog her entirely, regardless of the fact that she was born first. This wasn't some fringe concern. In 2004, the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party had already put reforming this exact rule into its election platform, and the main opposition party agreed with them. The plan was to scrap male preference and move to absolute primogeniture, eldest child inherits, full stop, regardless of gender, and to do it before Letizia had a son, so the law would already be in place and Leonor's position would be locked in. So picture the timeline. Leonor is born in 2005. The political class is already discussing rewriting the constitution to protect her spot. And for a little while, it looks like that reform is actually going to happen. Then, in 2007, Sofía is born. A second daughter. And here's the twist almost nobody talks about. Instead of making the reform feel more urgent, Sofía's birth seems to have done the opposite. With two daughters and no son, the immediate crisis the reform was designed to prevent suddenly felt less pressing. Felipe and Letizia's family was effectively complete. The political momentum stalled. The bill that would have closed the loophole never got finished, and to this day, the law on the books is still the old one, the one that, in theory, would let a future son outrank both of the daughters who actually exist. That's the real, almost. Spain almost rewrote its constitution specifically to protect Leonor's place in line, and the birth of her own sister is part of the reason that rewrite never happened. Now, here's where it gets almost absurd if you sit with it. Felipe is in his late 50s. Letizia is in her early 50s. The chance of this couple having another child, let alone a son, is effectively zero at this point. Which means the loophole that's been sitting in the Spanish constitution for nearly 2 decades, the one giving theoretical priority to a hypothetical brother, is now almost certainly never going to matter. Leonor's path to the throne is, in practical terms, completely secure. But the law itself was never actually fixed. It's just been quietly outpaced by biology. So if Sofía never had a real shot at displacing her sister, what's actually going on between these two? Because the way the Spanish royal household has built their public lives looks less like rivalry and more like a very deliberate split. Leonor's entire adult life has been engineered around one outcome, the crown. 3 years of military academy across the Army, Navy, and Air Force. A constitutional oath at 18. The Princess of Asturias title, the Golden Fleece, a packed calendar of solo engagements. Every choice made about her education and public image has one job, proving she's ready to be head of state. Sofía's path looks completely different, and that's not an accident either. She followed her sister through the same school and the same international baccalaureate program in Wales, but from there, their lives split. While Leonor went into uniform, Sofía enrolled at Forward College, a school that moves its students between Lisbon, Paris, and Berlin over 3 years studying political science and international relations, a far more international, far less military, far less constitutionally loaded path. She's been given her own small platforms, like fronting a national photography contest in her own name, and an honorary role with a teacher recognition program, public duties, but lower stakes ones, scaled to someone who is second in line, not first. That's actually how most modern constitutional monarchies handle this exact situation, and it's worth zooming out for a second. In the UK, you see the same pattern with Prince William and Prince Harry, one sibling's life built entirely around eventual kingship, the other given much more personal freedom, at least until things got complicated. In Sweden, Crown Princess Victoria carries the full weight of the heir's role while her younger siblings have noticeably lighter duties. The pattern is almost universal. The system doesn't pit the siblings against each other directly, but it does sort them, early and permanently, into two very different futures, one with the crown attached, and one without. Which brings us back to the loophole sitting quietly in the Spanish constitution. Constitutional lawyers and political commentators in Spain still bring this up periodically, not because anyone thinks Felipe is about to have a third child, but because it's an awkward, very visible reminder that Spain's founding legal document still technically ranks sons above daughters, a rule that conflicts with the same constitution's own equality clause. Reforming Article 57 would require amending the constitution itself, which in Spain needs broad cross-party agreement and, depending on the scope of the change, possibly even a referendum. With the practical stakes basically gone, nobody's been willing to spend that political capital just to fix a rule that, at this point, exists mostly on paper. So here's the actual shape of the story. Spain didn't almost choose Sofía over Leonor. Spain almost rewrote its own succession law to permanently protect Leonor, got two daughters in a row instead of the son that law was written to worry about, and then simply let the reform die because the emergency it was built to prevent stopped feeling like an emergency. The two sisters you see today, walking into Pope Leo XIV's audience together or sitting side by side at a Euro 2025 match, aren't living out some Game of Thrones-style rivalry. They're living inside an unfinished piece of legislation that, by sheer chance of biology, will probably never get tested, and somehow, through all of that, they still come across as each other's closest ally rather than each other's competition. If you want the deeper version of this, what would have actually happened constitutionally if Felipe and Letizia had had a son after Leonor was already alive and titled? Hit subscribe, because that hypothetical has actually been debated by Spanish constitutional scholars, and the answer is messier than you'd think.